Hey, everybody. Welcome to Small Attainable Goals. I'm Sean, and today I'm going to be interviewing Rebecca Faith Quinn. She is a TikTok and Instagram content creator and also an autism advocate and really just an all around awesome person. So I hope you guys like it. All of the links to her stuff will be in the description below. And also check out her film. It's pretty good. Who are you?
Your worst nightmare.
I'm kidding. I'm Rebecca Faith Quinn, otherwise known as Ribera Bonbon on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
And YouTube.
And YouTube. I forget that I have a YouTube. Like, I make
Yeah.
money, and that's what I spend most of my time working on. And I still forget that I have a YouTube.
Yeah. No, your YouTube's pretty great.
Thank
like
you. I work really hard on it.
Yeah, it shows.
Thank you.
You do. Good work. I had no idea how to pronounce your name. Rebecca Ribeiro?
It's Ribera Bonbon because it's an inside joke between me and my family.
That's something that you really want to put out there on the internet, an inside family joke. That gets
well, I didn't start off as like an Instagram creator. So like what happened was back in high school, one year for Christmas, my mom got me this bag and it was a Rebecca Bonbon bag, which apparently is a brand. And the Rebecca Bonbon portion was written in really fancy letters. And so it was hard to read. And my mom was like, "What does it say?" When I opened it, and I was like, "Ribera Bonbon?" And so my family started calling me Ribera Bonbon for like years. And I was really embarrassed of it at first. But then when I joined Instagram and TikTok on a whim, I was just like, okay, you know what? Lean into the skid. Ribera Bonbon. That's me.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be working. So.
But it's just so funny watching people try and read my name on lives because every time it's like Robert. And I'm like, no.
Rubberoo? I kept reading it as Rubberoo. And I was like, oh, maybe she's like really into some weird anime that I've never heard of. But now I find out. So where are you from?
I'm from Southern California, Los Angeles.
What do you do?
I am a counselor advocate for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, and I am a full-time content creator.
What's your main content? Instagram or TikTok?
A little bit of both. It's like an even mix between Instagram and TikTok. That's where I create most of my content, but like most of my content that I work hard on is on YouTube.
Yeah, you seem to be having a little bit more fun with your YouTube ones.
A little bit.
They're like longer and you kind of don't have that like looming clock over your head, I would assume.
Exactly. And on top of that, there's just I've always wanted to discuss and analyze film. Like I started doing the YouTube content that I do because most of the content that I watch on YouTube is people discussing and analyzing film and how it affects our day-to-day life and how we see things and how we interpret things, the psychology of film characters. Like I watch a lot of I watch a lot of Nostalgia Critic, Nerdstalgic, Lindsay Ellis. Like I watch all kinds of people, and it's always been something I enjoy. So I was like, you know what, I want to jump in on this, and I have my things that I want to say.
Yeah, those are my favorite videos that you have, especially when you shit on stuff. It's pretty funny.
I don't like doing thing you like is bad content, but at the same time it does so well, and it is so fun to shit on things. And I'm frustrated because like right before the actors strike happened and SAG was like, "Hey, don't talk about movies in any capacity unless they're from a non-struck company." Like I had already filmed and halfway edited a video talking about Atypical. And now I'm like, well, fuck.
I heard that if you already had it pre-filmed, then it wouldn't be considered in the strike if it was already in the bucket. That was what one of the
oh yeah, I could include a film date on there because YouTube allows you to say like what date you filmed things. So
I just heard that on a podcast that I listened to with an actor.
I will ask my friends who are strike captains.
That's good because I would like to watch that. And
And it was a long, and it was like a good video too. Like that's what frustrated me. It's one of my favorite videos I've done so far, and it was thing you like is bad content, but it also did balance out a little bit and be like, okay, here are some good things. But even with the good things, I'm struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks whenever you like put like a bunch of time into one video and you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. I love this video. And then like you put it out and it's like doesn't do as well as you want. And you're just like,
Literally
why?
with the last video that I posted with the Ben Shapiro and Jonah Hill thing, like I worked so hard on that video and it's just
Well, I was a little bit surprised. I'm not critiquing you or anything. I was a little
no.
surprised that you didn't talk about the other, like, because I heard, I don't know if it was, maybe you did more research than I did, but I heard like he did something really creepy like on the set of Punked. And
I
like,
did not hear about that, or else I would have talked about it. I was
yeah,
mostly just reacting to Ben Shapiro talking about the emotional abuse that was going on within those text messages, because a lot of
yeah,
people were like, oh, she's just laying boundaries. And still, like 2 weeks later, people are still in her comment section saying that Jonah dodged a bullet. And I'm like, that wasn't a boundary. That was
yeah,
controlling behavior. And it was weird and creepy.
yeah. I mean, I heard a bunch of like conflicting things about it. Like, because like one of the text messages that came out was like, he said, like, I don't want you having sleepovers with this guy. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But I mean, who cares if you guys aren't
It's
dating?
Yeah, it's a thing. Like it was even if because like one of the biggest issues was that he was also telling her that she can't surf with men,
Yeah, that's
and
weird.
she's a surf instructor. That's literally how they met, was
Yeah,
her teaching him how to surf. And it's like, okay, you're asking her to limit her monetary income to satisfy your jealousy, and that's controlling behavior. That is not a boundary, that is control.
yeah, that's super weird too. It's just legitimately weird.
Very
I don't know.
weird.
I don't know how you're like that insecure. Like, I don't even want you to look at another guy.
I've
Don't be near
actually
them.
I've dated guys like that. I
Really?
have dated, yeah, one of my longest relationships was with a guy who, like, in the beginning, he told me that he was not comfortable with me having male friendships. He was not comfortable unless he had approved the friend. He also like I remember one time he got so jealous because I worked in a movie theater at the time,
Hmm.
and so we would get free movies, and that would be our date night, and we would go see a movie. I don't even remember what movie it was we saw, but one of my coworkers was doing theater checks, where the usher just comes in, makes sure that like everything is the way it's supposed to be, checks the exit and stuff. And I looked over at my coworker and I was like giving him a funny look because I was trying to be, like the workplace friendship
Yeah,
thing where I was just like, like, like I
yeah.
was just trying to fuck with him while he's on the job. And my boyfriend at the time looks at me. He's like, "Why are you looking at him? Are you flirting with him? Are you cheating on me?" And I was like, "No, dude, I'm just flirting with him." Or not flirting with him. I'm just
Well, I mean, if that's what you said, then yeah. I mean, maybe he did get mad, but
No, that's not what I was just like, "No, I'm just joking with him." I wasn't actually flirting with him, but I should have because that was a nicer guy than my boyfriend was.
well, as long as you learn from the shit experiences, you're doing good.
Oh, for sure.
How long have you been doing content creating?
Since about 2020. Actually not even about 2020. Since 2020, I have been doing content creation. I got really, really bored in the pandemic. Like before the pandemic, I used to make fun of people who had TikToks. I was like, I may have done a lot of cringy things in my life, but I've never made a TikTok. I was that person.
Yeah,
None of those posts have aged well, and I make
and then
fun of myself every year for it.
and then you were like, I'll just get one to to be ironic, and then
It
slowly.
wasn't even ironic. I was just really bored. In the lockdown, I was just like, okay. And oh, actually, I remember the exact reason that I made a TikTok in the first place because so I was starting to reach out to autistic content creators for my short film because that was in pre-production before the pandemic started and before I even had a TikTok.
Yeah, really
And
good, by the way.
thank you. And I had reached out to Paige Lale, who I
don't know who that is.
She was the biggest autistic content creator at the time,
Mhm.
and I had seen a whole bunch of people like shitting on her on Twitter, like stating that she was like faking her autism. And I made a TikTok and made a video in response to that, and it like went somewhat viral for somebody who had literally 0 followers. I got like
Yeah,
3,000 views my first time.
that's
And
good.
it was just about things that autistic women are sick of hearing. And I was just joking about the things that I hear all the time when I tell people that I'm autistic. And like one of the ones that I hate hearing is like, I'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm autistic." And they'll be like, "But you're pretty." And I'm like,
Mm,
"Okay, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? I forgot only ugly people can be disabled."
yeah, yeah, that must suck. But on the bright side, all women are treated bad, so you're equal in that, I guess. I know it's horrible. You've been really open about your struggles online, your personal experiences and stuff. Do you mind sharing your story?
Which story?
Like
which
we can start with
struggles?
yeah. I mean, we'll get into all of them because I mean that's great content. But mainly, when you first got diagnosed with autism.
Oh yeah. So when I first got diagnosed, it was back in 2011. Like it was like between fall of 2010, like fall and winter 2010 to like the official diagnosis was in 2011, in like
Mhm.
early 2011, and I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
I'm
One
sorry.
of I know, right?
I'm immature. That word is funny.
My sisters used to do the same thing. Like every time I would tell them, I was like, "I have Asperger's syndrome," they'd be like, "Asperger's? You have Asperger's?" And
And
like,
that guy was like a piece of shit, though, wasn't he? He was like a
yes,
Nazi piece of shit. So
yes,
yeah, fuck him. We can laugh
fuck
at his name.
him. Yeah. Um, but I was diagnosed in 2011, and what I find really funny is like, no one ever explained to me what it meant. I remember sitting in the doctor's office and the doctor telling my mom, like I'm literally like right next to them, and the doctor tells my mom she has Asperger's syndrome. She has atypical Asperger's syndrome. And I said, "What's that?" And he just looked at me and looked at my mom and continued talking and never explained it to me. So like literally everything that I've learned about autism and neurodivergency in general, none of it has been from the people who were supposed to help me. Like no special
Yeah.
ed teachers explained what autism was to me. And in fact, most teachers expected me to know what autism was and to explain it to them. And I was just like, one of the things that it means is that I struggle with communication. So I don't know how to explain what it is.
Yeah.
And so like for a long time, I just didn't know how to respond to people when I said that I have Asperger's syndrome and that I'm autistic. And so I just kind of like either didn't tell people or I just said, "Go Google it." Like,
Here's a phone. Go Google it. Come back in like 45 minutes.
right. And this was like right around the time smartphones were starting to become a thing. So like Google was available. It just wasn't everybody's first thought.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I didn't actually learn what autism was until I started actually talking to other autistic people. I was not a member of the autism community, even though I was an autistic person. I was not a member of the autism community until probably around 2019, 2020.
Wow.
Not even
So
on Tumblr, because like I didn't know how to communicate with other autistic people either, because I was so far behind in knowledge. Like
yeah.
I used to accidentally upset people when I tried to join the autism community on Tumblr, because I used to use terms like high functioning and low functioning because I didn't know at the time that they were offensive. And people would get so mad at me and they'd be like, "Why are you using those terms? Like that's such a disgusting thing. You're a disgusting human being." And I was just like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
Yeah. And then you're just, I don't know. People gatekeep the weirdest shit. It's insane.
It's
And then,
like I know now that those terms are offensive. So like when I hear people say, "Oh, high functioning autism or low functioning autism," even so, that's not my response. Like the way that they handled it, I'm like, "Hey, That's actually an offensive term. The term we prefer is high support needs or low support needs.
Yeah, that definitely sounds better. But yeah, I mean, that's the way to deal with people like that. I
You'd
don't
be
know.
surprised. They still get offended.
That's weird. Like every single dumb thing that I've ever thought, like before in my life, if someone like explained it to me, then that was usually how I learned. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like when people were like, "No, you're a fucking piece of shit for saying that." It was like, you shouldn't say that. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, which is why I try and handle it, because I think that most of it comes from ignorance. There's still just so much misinformation on autism out there. Like I don't blame people for hearing wrong information about autism. I do blame people and get upset when they hear correct information and still stick to the wrong stuff. That's when I'm like, oh, okay, so you're just kind of an asshole. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people are like that,
So
especially
many.
nowadays,
I know.
especially with vaccines.
Oh my God. I had one guy I was working with in Halloween Horror Nights. He, knowing that I'm an autistic person, like continuously would drop the R slur in front of me.
Ooh.
And like, this is a workplace environment too. So it was a workplace harassment issue because he would say things like, "Oh, that's fucking R slur." And I would literally just say, "Hey, can you not use that word, please?" And he would flip the fuck out just for me asking him not to use that word. And he would say things like, "I'm from the fucking 90s, okay? God." And I'm just like, "It's 2023, you idiot."
Yeah.
Did you just come from a time capsule? Were you in a coma for the last 30 years?
People just like hold on to their shit. I mean, I've never been like that. I remember I used to, back in the early 2000s when I was in, not early 2000s, mid 2000s, whatever, high school years. I would say gay for meaning stupid,
Same.
And I'd be like, oh, and then finally one person was like, you shouldn't do that. And I was like, why? And then they like explained it to me and I was like, oh, so they're like, you just sound like an asshole. And I was like, oh, well, I don't really want to sound like an asshole by accident,
I will say gay now to things that I actually legit think are just like gay culture, but people think I'm doing that still. Like a friend of mine was like, I'm going to play D&D. And I was like, oh, gay. And he was like, you shouldn't use that. We're beyond that. And I was like, it's D&D. It's always gay. Have you never played a gay D&D game? Like I've never played a straight D&D game.
I've never played a gay D&D game.
What?
Yeah,
oh my God.
I've never played a straight one either, though. I have an addictive personality, and I feel like I get way too enthralled in it, so I've always kind of avoided it like cocaine because it looks like so much fun, and I'm just like,
so much fun. And I like to play the most ridiculous characters, and all my characters are always queer. Like they're either queer or they're just absolutely ludicrous and have no sexuality because they're like a penguin or something.
Yeah, I feel like I would when I found out that you could like do pretty much anything that you wanted to. That was when I was like, I should never play this game because I know that I would get kicked out, and I'd be like, I slapped the bar person, and they're like, okay, if you roll a 12, they slap you, they slap you back, and I'm like, okay, come on, 12, come on. I would totally just try to fight everybody or just like horrible things.
My penguin character, Kevin, he's actually a shapeshifter. He just spends most of the time as a penguin.
As you would.
He's always trying to steal people's hats.
That's a cool thing. I would think that he'd be slapping, but that's just
he does
me.
when they don't give him his hat the first time.
Oh. And then they learn, hopefully.
Sometimes.
When you found out your diagnosis, obviously you weren't, prepared for it or anything like that. Like you weren't informed by your doctors or anything, which sucks and happens all the time with everything, pretty much. I mean, I got diagnosed with anxiety when I was like in the year after I graduated high school, so like 2010, and then like they were just like, yeah, you're just going to be nervous all the time. And I was like, okay, but like, what do I do? They're like, yeah, just take this pill. It might help you, might not. I was like, all right, thank you. That was not helpful. Nowadays, they're getting a little bit better, I think, and hopefully they're getting a little bit better with the autism community too when they're diagnosing like kids and stuff. I think that Twitter and like TikTok and all that stuff like helps. Like, I mean, I got diagnosed with ADHD last like 3 months ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm 32, and yeah, so for it only took 30 years for them to figure it out.
Only 30.
But, yeah, totally fine. But yeah, then I started taking medication for it, and I was like, oh my god, is this how like normal people feel all the time? Like, this is insane. No wonder you guys do a bunch of stuff. My friend was like talking to me. He's like, if this happened in high school, do you think you would have liked school? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. But I hated it.
I was lucky in the fact that I had I got diagnosed, in autism. I got diagnosed in autism. I got diagnosed in high school, so like I was in special ed courses, and each school, because I went to 2 different high schools, and each school handled the special ed differently. But I needed both for different reasons. So like the first school, the special ed students had like a free period where they just sat and did whatever homework we had, or slept, which is what I did because I was tired. And then the other school had integration where they had a special ed teacher in the classes with the regular students as well. And we would like get to be separated if we needed it, but if we didn't need it, we just got to stay there. So it was really nice. I liked school for that reason.
That's good. So they actually had like accommodations for you that were like helpful.
Yeah. And when we tested, like when we did tests, we also got to test in a separate room with just like the other special ed students to give us a little bit of a break. And the teachers were there to they would read the tests out loud to us so that we could actually better comprehend the questions we were being asked.
Yeah, that would have been helpful back in the day.
It was so helpful.
I would always read stuff like 50 times and I'd be like, oh my god, this is so boring. If it was boring. I mean, if it was like a comic book, I'd read it in like 2 seconds and I'd be like, that was fantastic. What else? But yeah, anything boring, I was like, do you think that there's anything that like teachers or like administrations could do better?
I do. Teaching sex ed. Oh, excuse me. Teaching sex ed to disabled students, because that was the one class that, for one, I grew up, the second high school I went to was in a very conservative town, so they didn't even teach sex ed at all, which I highly disagree with because people were getting pregnant all over the place. And but I especially encourage people to find ways to teach special education students sex ed, because whether you are comfortable with it or not, disabled people are going to have sex, and they should do it safely. They should be taught from an early age, like, hey, like I as a counselor advocate for survivors, I do actually work with like people trying to talk about sex to their children. And one of the things that we work on is it's called good touch, bad touch, wrong touch, which I think if the special needs person is significantly developmentally delayed, this could actually help. So like good touch is touches that make us feel happy, touches that like a hug, touches like a kiss. Those are good touches. Bad touch would be touches that hurt. Like, so if we get hit, or if we get bitten, or if we get pushed. And then wrong touch is touches that make us feel scared, or any touch that needs to be kept a secret. If the touch needs to be kept a secret, tell somebody.
That's really good. I mean, honestly, they should teach that to everyone, but
they really should, but unfortunately they don't wanna.
Yeah. I mean, it is, in their defense, I could see it being awkward telling a 5-year-old that, but like you really should.
You should. So, it can be difficult, but the 5-year-old especially should know good touch, bad touch, wrong touch, so that they can tell their parents, hey, something happened that wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. The more informed people are, the better off they are.
Exactly. Information is safety.
And power.
Yeah.
So let's get into what exactly is stemming and masking. You talk about that a lot in your videos.
So stimming is basically
Is it stimming? Not stemming.
stimming with an I.
Oh.
Stimming. Stemming is like going like branching off. Stimming is any sort of like uh thing that you do with your body to release energy. So like not necessarily like exercising, although exercising can be a form of stimming if you're doing it to calm your nerves. But stimming can be something like, oh, you know, whistling when you're nervous, or bouncing your knee, tapping your foot, tapping your nails. Everyone stims. It's just autistic people do it more routinely and tend to do it in a similar fashion to each other. So like a lot of autistic people will flap our hands. But there's good stims and there's bad stims. So like stimming because something excited happened. Like, so we flap our hands. But like sometimes for me, like when I'm like really overstimulated, my hands flap a little lower, like a little closer to my hips, because I'm like, get that away from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's our ways of just getting out energy. And what was the other one that you asked?
Masking.
Masking. Okay. So this is a concept that I'm still in the thinking process of, but like, because a lot of people keep saying, oh, you know, autistic people aren't the only ones who mask. And like I do somewhat agree with that. But I also think autistic people are the only ones masking. And there's a difference between like putting on a mask, or like masking your emotions, and masking as the singular verb. Because masking as the singular verb for autism is very much it's like putting on another person's skin almost.
So like pretending to be someone else.
Yeah, like right now I am currently masking. It's something that a lot of us do out of safety. Because if we were to talk like normal autistic people, or like what we perceive as normal for ourselves, it might result in different reactions that could put us in harm's way,
That makes
either
sense.
emotionally or sometimes even physically. Like
Mhm.
I have dropped the mask at times with friends or loved ones, like that boyfriend that I mentioned before. I stopped masking as much around him in like the last year and a half that we were together. He did not like that.
Yeah.
It caused a lot
That's
of
gotta be
fights.
rough. Yeah,
It is,
that's gotta be
you
rough.
know, it's I try to mask less because masking is exhausting.
Yeah, no. I
It's
figured out what masking was, and from your videos, and I was like, oh shit, I do that. I was like,
I'm glad
that's what
I
that
can
is.
help.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't really help, but I still have to do it all the time.
Well, I'm glad I could help you identify
You
it.
gave it a name, so good
That's
for that.
important. Naming
Yeah.
things is power.
Yeah, true. But yeah, can't tell you how many times I've been told that I have resting bitch face.
All the time.
That is one thing that I loved about COVID when you had to wear the masks. No one told me to smile anymore, which
Right?
I know that I know that happens to women all the time, but like it happens to men with resting bitch face too.
Oh, for sure. Like it happened. I went to Outback for when I hit 100,000 followers on Instagram. I went to Outback to celebrate because they had a shark drink. So naturally I had to go get it. But our
How was
waiter
it?
there, oh, it's delicious. It's so good. I'm Jewish, so therefore I'm a lightweight, and I got tipsy after like 2 of them. But
It's
it
totally
was
fine.
enjoyable. But our waiter there, my dad, he was really nervous because it was his first table and he was having like a panic attack. This poor boy. And my dad literally was like trying to help. And my dad was like, hey, smile. It's okay. And I like slapped my dad's hand and I was like, don't tell him to do that. And I literally looked at the guy and I was like, you feel what you're going to feel. It's okay. Just know that we think you're doing a great job. And then I made my dad tip him like super extra because he was trying so hard, but he was having such a panic attack.
Yeah, that's always the worst feeling.
And I was just like, that boy is going through something. He needs some extra kindness.
Yeah. So you are autistic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also ever have any other mental health problems like anxiety,
Yes.
depression?
Along with being autistic, I also have bipolar 2 disorder. And so I oftentimes get in manic depressive episodes. I'm actually coming off of one right now.
Well,
'Cause-
I'm glad that you're doing better.
Thank
hopefully.
you.
Unless you're coming back from a manic episode, in which case you're probably doing worse.
So the thing with bipolar 2 disorder is we don't actually get manic episodes that often. They happen like once in a blue moon. I think the last manic episode I had was like 2-3 years ago.
That's good.
But we get a lot of manic depressive episodes where it's like a combination of both mania and depression. So it's like it's not fun. We can do like
you're kind of on the edge.
Yeah, and combining that with autism is just so fun. It's so fun because like I hit autism burnout and manic depressive episode at the exact same time, and they like to tag team. Like just like my ADHD and my autism like to tag team against me. My bipolar 2 and my autism like to tag team. Autism just likes to tag team against me. Like sometimes it works in my favor, but like other times it's just like let's ruin this life.
Yeah, that's always the worst. And then you always get depressed at like the worst times.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that no one ever talks about with depression is when you actually have something good going for you. And like this is just me personally. Like if something good is going for me, I'll be like, is this actually good, or is it like my brain tricking me? Like, am I just like moderately manic right now? It sucks.
Yes. That's why I have a shopping addiction.
Oh God, buying stuff feels so good sometimes.
I know. I literally just bought a whole bunch of stuff last night because I got paid from a product placement that I did. And so I got paid and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy things. So I bought the entire DVD box set of How I Met Your Mother so that I can make content about that because I'm hoping to make content about is Ted Mosby Jewish or autistic or both.
I loved that show until the last episode. Then I hated it.
I've made my peace with that last episode.
I get it. And I liked the one where they released like the alternate ending. That was okay. But I don't know. I'm just so mad.
I think, and I was just talking about this to my best friend because we're both obsessed with that show to the point where like sometimes I'll just text her and I'll be like, we should buy a bar. And she'll respond, we should totally buy a bar. And like, that's just like how we converse. But like I was talking to her yesterday about it. And I was saying, I think I would have been more okay with the ending being that the mother has been dead this entire time if
he didn't go out with Robin.
If he went out with Victoria instead.
Oh.
Because Victoria continuously got the shit end of the stick.
I know. And Robin just sucked. I mean, like, she was great. Don't get me wrong. She was great. Colby Smulders is awesome. But, like, oh, God. I remember my best friend he, like, loved it, too. And we would, like, watch it together usually. And I remember when it happened, he, like, called me. And he was like, so we just watched the whole season and her and Barney got divorced? You know, the whole thing is about their wedding and they just got divorced. He's like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, that I feel was the biggest mistake, was having the entire season build up to their wedding only to divorce them in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
That's where they failed. That was a bad idea. And also the separation of Jason Segel, which was mostly due to him having scheduling conflicts because he became a giant star out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, not out of nowhere. The dude can act.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just he had a good 2 years where he just suddenly blew up and was everywhere in every film because he's very talented and very funny.
Did you watch this new show, Shrinking?
My therapist keeps trying to get me to watch that show because like there's the thing that they do with like the cry time. And my therapist is like, you need to start doing cry time. And I'm like, okay.
It's a pretty good show. I liked it.
That's what I've heard.
Harrison Ford is a grumpy guy in it, which is always fun.
I love Harrison Ford. I love Harrison Ford and I love Jason Segel. Two hilarious Jewish men. And I do find it really funny that out of like the 5 main cast of How I Met Your Mother, 3 of them are Jewish or at least half Jewish. And the 2 goys are the ones that got married.
Yeah. I mean,
Josh
Barney
Radnor.
got married.
Yeah.
Barney got married.
He's a goy. Neil Patrick
Oh, is
Harris?
he?
Yeah, he's not Jewish.
I thought he was only. He's not. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were saying, because before you were saying that Ted Mosby was Jewish.
Yeah, Ted Mosby is Jewish.
And he got married.
Oh, well, yeah, but like, I mean the 2 that married each other. That was a tangent.
I know. I feel like an idiot because I keep going on tangents.
No, it's okay. It's not just you. It's me.
Yeah.
I could literally talk about How I Met Your Mother so much. I literally have a pillowcase back there, the blue French horn.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Be right back.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh,
Says I would have stolen you a whole orchestra.
That's amazing. Yeah. Did you watch How I Met Your Father?
I watched the first 2 episodes and I wasn't impressed.
I couldn't get into it.
I don't know how it's still going, but you know what? I also, at the same time, wish the best for Hilary Duff because she deserves the best.
She is a great person. She's actually the one who told me not to say gay to mean stupid in that commercial that she made in 2005.
I remember it.
Yeah. I was like, Hilary Duff, you're right. Thank you, Lizzie.
I love Hilary Duff.
There's a new Lizzie McGuire Funko Pop coming out. I saw it drop today.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's even got the little cartoon mini Lizzie that used to like pop out of her head because she probably had undiagnosed schizophrenia, but they didn't want to talk about that in the Disney show.
I actually don't think she had undiagnosed schizophrenia. I don't think she meets the criteria for schizophrenia.
She had a little cartoon guy that popped out of her head. I don't know what that is. That's definitely not
just her
neurotypical.
Imagination. It was just her imagination. It was a personification of how she was feeling inside and how she was reacting to things. And it was their way. It was also Disney's sneaky way of being able to trademark and sell a doll and merchandise for Lizzie McGuire without actually having to trademark Hilary Duff's face.
Disney is like evil geniuses. They do a great job. You love Disney, right?
I love Disneyland. I love Disney parks. I'm okay on films. Like, I mean, there are a lot of Disney films that I enjoy a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't know. They haven't been really hitting for me lately.
No. What about the Marvel ones?
Love Marvel. I am starting to feel a little bit of the Marvel fatigue.
Yeah, same.
But I think we all kind of are. And I think it's because it's gotten so formulaic that I think their biggest mistake was having what's his name be the next Thanos.
Yeah, because he's they kind of got screwed on that because he's apparently not a very nice person.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think introducing him so early on was a mistake because the reason we were so intimidated by Thanos and obsessed with Thanos was because Thanos had that buildup. You know, there were years.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
years
the first
like
5 movies in Avengers, he was just literally like a purple ballsack chin. That was it. And then what you saw, and you're like, who is that?
And so I just feel like having Kane the Conqueror be the next big bad, even though Kane the Conqueror in the comic books is a big bad, I just don't feel like it was the right decision. I think that instead of building up to another big bad, they should have started doing some weird stuff.
I would have liked that too. I wanted them to make Magneto the next big bad.
That would have been fascinating.
Because Magneto's like the one villain that you're like, I kind of get it, dude. I kind of get it. You're just like, he's like, I survived the Holocaust. Like,
right?
I'm gonna commit genocide, but I survived one. And you're just like, that's evil, but good God.
You can see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And every time I rewatch the X-Men movies from the past, Magneto gets more and more correct, but like just without the genocide part. Because I still disagree with the genocide. But like,
yeah, that's good. I think when you get to the point where you're like, kind of get the genocide, then you should be like, I should probably go to a doctor.
And at the same time, I also don't trust that Marvel would have done a good job with having Magneto be the big bad because of their because of the MCU in particular's treatment of Jewish characters.
Who is Jewish? I know that Paul Rudd is Jewish, but
Paul Rudd is Jewish, but his character is not. Whereas the characters Scarlet Witch and Bucky and and also Spider-Man, all three of those characters are canonically Jewish, but the MCU has stripped them of their Judaism.
Yeah.
In fact, they had to cut a scene in the Civil War movie where they showed Wanda's room because for some reason they had crosses put up in there.
Yeah,
that's and weird. It's really offensive. And then when they actually do have Jewish characters, they still, even if they are canonically Jewish, they still drastically tone down their Judaism. Like Mark Spector, like for oh my god, Moon Knight. Thank you. Moon Knight was in the comics. Mark Spector's Judaism is integral to who he is as a superhero. Whereas in the show, it was drastically toned down. It was kind of like an afterthought. Like in the comic books, part of the reason he has dissociative identity disorder was because he saw so many hate crimes, anti-Semitic hate crimes happen to his community and his family. Like his father was a rabbi who got a swastika carved into his cheek. And that was part of what started his dissociative identity disorder. In fact, his first act as a superhero is to save somebody who went into a burning synagogue to save a Torah. That was his first act as Moon Knight. And all of that is missing from the Moon Knight show. Yeah. And I did
not love the Moon Knight show. I know that a lot of people loved it. I did not love it. It was probably the first one.
I liked aspects of it. But I didn't.
There was definitely cool stuff, but
yeah, and I didn't like the way they changed what's such a Jewish story to be non-Jewish, and then going with the trope of a shrill and abusive Jewish mother, which is a trope in a lot of media, and that made me really uncomfortable because it to me said that the producers and the directors were uncomfortable with Mark's Judaism and had to tone it down.
That is a weird trope. I've never really noticed that, but I mean, I am.
It happens Jewish, a lot. So. It happens a lot.
I've always been, since I would like every single Jewish mom that I've ever met, is basically Italian in my mind because they're just like a little bit overbearing, a little bit too much love, and then, you know, I mean, they're exactly like my mom, and they're just like, here. What's wrong? Oh, you want some food? Here you go.
I tell this to my friend Jessica. She's Tremaine Talk on TikTok. She and I talk all the time, and I'm just like, Italians are basically the most Jewish goys that you'll ever find. Like Italians and Jews, we act pretty similar. It's really hard for us to tell each other apart at times.
Yeah, especially with the some of the stereotypes of food.
Right.
Yeah. My brother-in-law is not Jewish, but he has a very large Italian nose, and he has been called Jewish a lot. And
happens all the time. Literally earlier today, I had to make a video about that because my friend Jessica, somebody told her in her comment section, you need to get a nose job because she has a very Italian nose. And somebody asked in her comment section, they were like, hey, that feels like an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Like, I know you're not Jewish, but it feels like an anti-Semitic dog whistle. So I made a video explaining like, yeah, actually that is an anti-Semitic dog whistle because the history of rhinoplasty and the popularization of it came from Jews hiding their Jewishness in Nazi Germany because they would literally measure noses.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Jews. Yeah. God. Germany sucked back then. I'm sure.
It's starting to suck again now.
Germany is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you were talking about America.
It's Germany too. They actually in Berlin, I believe it was, they had teachers call out students and their families because the students were drawing swastikas in the desks, making Nazi salutes in the hallways. And in Germany, that kind of shit's illegal. And the teachers called it out and they were like, hey, you know, this isn't appropriate. Why would you be doing this? And the parents of those students said that the teachers are being too sensitive to the point where those teachers received death threats and they had to flee. They had to leave town.
Oh, that fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always get creeped out when like books start getting banned and burned, and then
Same.
yeah, it's never a good sign. Well, let's move on to something a little bit more positive.
Yeah, pleasant. Let's do pleasant. We like pleasant.
None of these questions are pleasant. Jesus Christ.
It's okay.
You talk a lot about missing or like sometimes misinterpreting like social cues. What does that mean exactly?
So, oftentimes I will misinterpret social cues to the detriment of my friendships. Like I can't recognize people's facial expressions very well. To the point where sometimes I hurt people's feelings. And I get called insensitive or rude or things like that. Like, for example, like 2 years ago when I was doing my first run in Halloween Horror Nights, one of my coworkers in the Bride of Frankenstein maze, one of my castmates who was a part of that maze with me, he, on the very last day, he hit his head and like he hit it pretty hard, like to the point where he was a little dizzy. And because he was smiling, my brain was like, "Oh, he's fine. He doesn't feel bad because he's still smiling because his face was in an upturned motion." I didn't realize that he was actually in pain and anxious, and that's just the face that he made when he was in pain and anxious. Everyone else noticed that. I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I was like joking with him, and he looks at me, he's like, "Can you not joke right now? I'm really scared that I have a concussion." And I was like,
Sorry.
"Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. Like one of my friends, I accidentally insulted because I took a phrase literally and I repeated said phrase and it insulted her. And she really, like, at first she was like really annoyed and she was just like, I don't know there is something off about this girl. And then like 2 weeks later, I mentioned to another cast member that I'm autistic. And my friend January overheard that and she literally looked at me. She's like, "Oh my God, everything about you makes sense now." Because she has an autistic child herself.
Yeah, I've had those moments. Like when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I told my best friend, I was like, "Yeah, it turns out I have ADHD." And he's like, "Yeah, I know." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean you know?" He's like, "I didn't know it was that, but like I knew there was something off about you." And I was like, "Thanks for telling me." He's like, "I've been telling you for years. You're weird." And I'm like, "Thanks." Thank you for watching Small Obtainable Goals. Hopefully this helped you in some way or another, or it can, help somebody that you know. If you're having trouble, call 988. That's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and they'll, hook you up with somebody who can help you in your local area. It's all free, so, take advantage of it. And, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, or don't, whatever makes you happy. I'm Sean. This is my sister, Kirsten.
I'm Kirsten.
Yeah. You've ruined it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
And cut.